There are some things that everyone knows. And when I mention the word Dionysus and the Bacchae, we all think we know. But Judith, tell us what we don't really know.
I'll try. The Bacchae is one of Euripides' most powerful and most difficult dramas. It can sometimes be seen as an archaizing tragedy, getting back to the simple things in life.
Imagining the way it should have been long ago.
Yeah, well, and Euripides has, when he produces the Bacchae, he has recently been doing all sorts of mad experiments with different modes of drama. He's been producing very long dramas like the Euripides with lots and lots of references to different versions of myths and kidnappings and all sorts, just very revolutionary stuff. And then right at the end of his life we get the Bacchae, which seems to go very much back to basics in terms of structure. Got a huge role for the chorus, where people often say with late Euripides, I don't think they're right actually, but people do often say with late Euripides that the chorus is diminishing in importance, and then you get this hugely important chorus in the Bacchae. It's a difficult play in some ways because it's a play where we see the god Dionysus take a horrible revenge on his own first cousin, Pentheus, for not believing in him as a god. And it's very nastily done. Dionysus basically drives Pentheus mad, humiliates him publicly, and then arranges for him to be torn apart by his own mother, who is also, by this point, has been driven mad by Dionysus. So it's a demonstration really of enormous cosmic power on the part of the god, and it simply, as one of the characters, Cadmus, says at the end, it's simply too much. It's just, but it's too much. And that creates a problem for us, I think, because Dionysus is the god whose festival this was originally performed at. So we have to square the circle of saying, well, you can honour a god in some sense by having a play at the festival which shows the god in a very bad light. Of course, it shows him in a very powerful light. Perhaps that's the most important thing. But it does also make you very afraid. It does represent a very early stage in history, and that's perhaps important. Demonstrates, mythologically speaking, a time long, long, long before the Trojan War, when Dionysus is still very new and has come in from Asia and introducing his cult, which emphasises the sort of releasing of emotion, the lack of control of women. Women that he maddens have left the city, left their homes, left their husbands, left their families. They're not, in fact, doing anything bad, but they are out of the house, which in ancient Athenian terms is quite worrying. It's also, of course, the release that one gets from drinking wine. Wine is involved, and it plays into a whole stack of myths about Dionysus, which play out stories about how unsettling it must have been when his worship was first introduced into Greece. Actually, something which happened at an extremely early date, but this shock of the new feature of Dionysus is something which is constantly replayed in his myths. I think that is almost certainly to do with the fact that he's a god who has a human mother, Semele, although the reason he's a god and not merely a hero is because when Semele was burnt to a crisp through having unwisely asked to see Zeus in all his glory, Zeus snatched up the embryo, put it into his own thigh, and Dionysus was then born a second time from Zeus's thigh. this story of a sort of wrong first birth, as it were, or almost a miscarriage at first, and then this second birth from Zeus, means that the myths revolve around a lack of ability to believe that this person really is a god. Interestingly enough, much later, the author of the Christus Patiens, a Byzantine play about Christ, picked up a number of lines from the Bacchae and applied them to Christ, because the sort of same sort of disbelief and resistance could be represented in terms of Christ as well as in terms of Dionysus, although the two, of course, have nothing to do with each other in any other way. Perhaps another very important part of the play is the way that Dionysus demonstrates his powers at different points and in different ways through this story. He has already, before the thing begins, demonstrated his powers by causing magical growth of plants, by driving women mad and sending them off to roam the hillsides. He causes an earthquake during the course of the play, and he causes Pentheus to hallucinate in various ways, including thinking that he, Dionysus, is a bull, seeing double, and so on. But above all, I think dramatically, he demonstrates his powers. It speaks the prologue of the play. Lots of Euripidean prologues are spoken by gods, and he speaks much of the last scene of the play, disposing of all the mortals. But he also acts as a character throughout the drama.
There's another aspect of Euripides, and that is we see in the play what I think are two characteristic themes of Greek religion. The first one is coming close to the gods is a dangerous thing. The closer you come to the gods, the more likely you are to get hurt. Power is dangerous. And the second is the motif that those whom the gods destroy, they first make mad. And madness is a prelude to destruction.
Yes, I think that's very true. Interestingly, in this play, both the people who are the main characters who are afflicted with madness, both Pentheus and Agave, his mother, come to their senses, and in many respects, the real punishment either coincides with coming to their senses or immediately follows it. So Pentheus, having been driven mad by Dionysus, goes up to spy on the Maenads. Dionysus then says, sort of, look over here, and they go for him. And it's at that point he actually does realise that, yes, Dionysus is a god, and he's reported as acknowledging it, but it's too late, so they tear him apart anyway. And then in the final twist, Agave comes back holding the head of Pentheus, which she thinks is the head of a lion, so she too has had her vision interfered with. But then her father Cadmus, Pentheus's grandfather, talks her down, as it were, a very interesting scene. And she, of course, then suddenly realised that she's holding Pentheus's head, and that it was she and her sister, so his aunts, who were responsible for this, and that clearly is the worst thing that's happened to Agave. While she was mad, she was fine, but it's the coming down that has really destroyed her. In the very final scene, Pentheus obviously is he's actually in bits more or less on the stage. Cadmus it's all a little compromised by the fact that we've lost part of the last speech. But what is clear is that Cadmus complains about the way that they've been treated. It is just, but it is too much. And Dionysus simply says, "You said I could."
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's no comeback to that. And he sent then essentially sends the whole family into exile, and worse, splits them up. So they're really scattered across this very primitive landscape with no hope of joining together again.
The end is desolation.
Yes.
Judith, thank you for that insight into Euripides, which in turn is an insight into Greek religion.
Thank you.